okay, these are the deals that work really well.
Mhm.
These are the ones that work kind of well. And these are the ones that we're going to completely avoid and stay away from. I don't care how many gurus I know that make millions of dollars allegedly. We're going to stay away from those. And we're going to be very clear with our buy box to
Yeah.
protect our reputation and our investors' money.
Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing all over North America. And today it's a pleasure and an honor to have Mason McDonald joining us from Colorado. Hi, Mason. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Little jet lagged. I was just in Japan last week. So if I sound a little sick and a little out of it, it's because I'm still on Tokyo time, but very excited to be here, Axel.
Okay, well, I'll make sure that we keep you awake for this period of time. As usual, for everyone who's listening, share this episode with a friend who could benefit from this conversation. Leave us a review, send us some comments, and it will be a pleasure to respond to everything we get, and we'll find you the experts that you want on the show to answer your questions. Now, today, Mason's story is a little different. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff, and then eventually get to real estate. Because life is a journey and real estate investing is a journey as well. So, Mason, first of all, like, how in the world did you get started in real estate investing?
Oh, yeah. So I grew up in a family of real estate investors. My great grandfather on my mom's side, who I didn't really know, developed Boca Raton, Florida back in the 50s. And then my dad inherited a commercial real estate portfolio in Houston, Texas when he was 15 years old. And so I was always kind of exposed to it. But growing up with a Jewish mom and stepfather, my career choices were doctor or lawyer. And so that was initially the career route that I went on, but had
Yeah.
always been exposed to it. So
So
my
wait, which
journey,
one was it?
I initially was going to go down the physician route.
Okay.
So yeah, to just jump right into my story, wanted to become a physician, went to Baylor University in Waco, Texas, and got my undergrad in neuroscience with a minor in biochem, took the MCAT, got med school interviews and everything. And then my senior year, I realized I hated science and I did not want to become a doctor. And so I was doing a research internship at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Waco. And I was talking to my research supervisor. I was like, dude, I hate my life. I don't want to go into medicine. I don't know what to do. There are no job opportunities, even though neuroscience sounds like a really cool, fancy degree. My options were like continue being a waiter at a steakhouse and, have a very expensive piece of paper to show for it. And he was like, what about healthcare administration? I did not realize healthcare administration was a thing. I did not realize hospitals needed administrators. And having kind of always having that entrepreneurial spirit, the business idea and the business side of healthcare was really appealing to me.
Mhm.
So took the GRE, got accepted into grad school 5 days before graduating college, which my girlfriend, who is now my wife, which we just celebrated our 5th anniversary in Japan last week, was very happy about that I wasn't going to continue being a waiter after graduation. So my prospects looked a little bit better. Went to grad school, did okay in grad school, didn't love the school thing or anything like that, but got a residency where I learned how to work in every single department in the hospital, from scrubbing toilets to preparing $30 million pro formas for expansions and land acquisitions and all sorts of crazy stuff throughout that residency. Got promoted into an associate administrator position. The very next year, had about 90 employees in 7 departments, oversaw about $2 million in bottom line budget. Did really well in that position, got promoted into a COO position the very next year in Colorado Springs. Did well in that position, got promoted into CEO the very next year. And at 26 years old, having made it to the height of corporate America, it's one of the younger hospital CEOs in the country, hated my life. I was
Classic.
yeah, right. You're starting to see this repeating pattern.
Yeah.
But hated my life, was hypertensive stage 2. My blood pressure was like 165 over 100.
Okay, let's just explain. When you say
Yeah.
I hated my life, Can you kind of walk us through what did that mean? What is it that you hated about it? What was unsatisfying and unfulfilling?
Yeah, absolutely. I was working a ton and I love work. It's my personality, but the work wasn't fulfilling uh, in the way I expected it to be. I know a lot of people out there, especially healthcare professionals, understand that hospital administrators are like the most hated people in the industry. They're the suits that are always focused on bottom line and profit, profit, profit. And that's not how I operated my hospital. I was always staff and patients first because I know if you take care of your staff, they take care of your patients, and the bottom line is what comes after that. If
Yeah,
you are empowering your staff through effective leadership and constant process improvement so they can do the job to the best of their ability, costs are going to be cut automatically. However,
yeah.
when you're working for a very large corporation, and I have nothing against the corporation, it's just the way business is
Mhm.
operated here in America and healthcare specifically. um, it is profit first always when you're working for a for-profit huge company.
Yeah,
So it was sucking my soul out of my body having to focus on the numbers rather than the person that we were treating.
yeah.
And when you're doing that and you're trying to the best of your ability and you're having success, or quote unquote success of people, and I don't say this in a bragging way, but like people viewed it as very impressive of my career going the way
Mhm.
it did at the age I did it at. And
Yeah,
I don't think it was my intelligence or my work ethic or anything like that. I think I was at the right organization at the right time and I attempted to do business in the right way. And business just
yeah.
makes sense in my brain. But it it was exhausting. I was never home. I don't have kids. I have two dogs and I'm married and didn't get to see my wife and dogs. And every time I would go to the gym, I'd go to the gym at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to get a workout in, and then I'd get a work call, and I'm like, so my health is deteriorating. I'm not
Yeah.
sleeping, and yeah, that's kind of what I mean of I hate my life. So I was grateful for the position. I realized I was blessed and, financially and, in the position of being married to the best partner. Um, but it was exhausting. And so having that background in real estate investing, I was listening to all the podcasts, Bigger Pockets. I spent thousands of hours listening to real estate investing podcasts and reading the books, and had finally saved up about 60 or $70,000 and was ready to do my first investment. I was looking at doing a townhome syndication, and I saw what the return would be. And I was talking to the person raising the money, and he said, what I do is I flip land, and I make about 60 grand a month flipping land. And
Mhm.
for those of you that have seen The Wolf of Wall Street, whenever Jonah Hill is talking to Leonardo DiCaprio at the diner, and it's like, "Show me your paycheck, and I'll quit my job right now."
Yeah.
Um, so it was kind of like that moment. And he showed me how much he was making. I took a land flipping course for 5 grand, learned how to do it. And
Yeah.
long story short, I made 6 figures on my first land flip, and I quit my job. And that first land flip was actually in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, which we were discussing briefly before the episode.
Oh, wow. Okay, there's so much to unpack in your journey. So now we understand a little bit more how you started and your, I was going to say, your pre-investor life in the medical management field. And where was all this taking place in the U.S.?
Initially in San Antonio, Texas, and then in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Okay.
Got to move. I took over the hospital. I think my first day was February 3rd, 2020, as chief operating officer. And
Oh, fun.
yeah, so we all know what happened a few
Oh
weeks
man.
later. So
L- l- Learn by battle.
yeah, for real.
Battle tested. Okay, so then you went through this. As you said, you hated your life and your existence, and then you migrated towards the land flipping. So, and that's what you're doing now full time?
Yeah, yeah. So I own a land flipping, excuse me, I own a land flipping company where we're doing about 7 figures gross per year,
Mhm.
and about half that in operating margin.
Okay.
In our second year in existence, I own a company where I fund other people's deals, where
Mhm.
we come in as a joint venture capital partner. And then I am launching a fund pretty soon, which we're very, very excited about. It's a part of the long-term vision of owning the private equity firm
Yeah,
that's involved in real estate investing and that sort of thing. So it's a great stepping stone to get into that world. So that's kind of
for
where I'm
sure.
at now. And then I've got my own podcast, and I get to travel. My wife just retired. My wife a couple weeks ago, so she is now working with me, which means that I will eventually be working for her very soon because she is the smart one. I'm the funny one. And yeah, life is good.
Okay, so for all those who are listening and who want to know and understand a little bit more, because we do happen to have a fair amount of land here in Quebec, and you can buy parcels for literally like $15,000. So can you kind of walk us through within a couple minutes of what does the land flipping business look like? How do you add value? And how do people ensure that their money has enough velocity?
Absolutely. So, and I'll speak for the US, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's similarities in
Yeah.
the ability to execute similarly
Mhm.
in various parts of Canada as well. What I do is I direct seller market either through direct mail or cold calling campaigns or texting campaigns to get in front of a seller that owns a piece of land that I would be interested in purchasing.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're distressed. Most of the time, it's not distressed. They've just owned it for a long time and they're ready to get rid of it. I then get it under contract and either um, attempt to wholesale it, or 99% of the time, I purchase it and then resell it on the market. So for, say, that $15,000 piece of land, if I got it under contract for 7 grand, purchased it, relisted it at $15,000, there's your profit. So I
Mhm.
do deals anywhere from similar to that one. I just we're under contract to purchase one for 7,700 that we're listing for 25,000,
Mhm.
to other ones that there's the more value add component of, and within land, it always depends on what the exit strategy is based
Yeah.
on the timeline for money and how much you want to put into it. And that's one of the beautiful things is how many exit strategies there are of whether
Mhm.
you want to wholesale or double close or buy and resell or do some sort of value add. Like did a minor subdivision down in Phoenix recently, bought it for 250. We're going to end up installing a well, which will cost about 60,000. And all the surveying costs and legal costs was another 5,000. So let's call it all in at 310, 315.
Mhm.
And we're exiting in the mid 600s on that one. So,
And that's through a subdivision? Is that something you do frequently?
starting to do a lot more of these
Mhm.
minor subdivisions where it's
Okay.
taking one lot and splitting it into 4 to 10 lots, depending on the county and the regulations and the
Mhm.
speed that you can do it.
Yeah.
So, Maricopa County, Arizona, which is the Phoenix area, super easy, really easy to do. I mean, the survey process took a week. We're going to install the well because that's what people keep asking
Yeah.
for and putting a 60 grand into. You see the
Yeah,
margins are
you add
ridiculous.
so much value. If you buy that piece of land, subdivide it into 5, and then put a well in the middle, it's a no-brainer.
So that's exactly it. But
Mhm.
that's kind of the short version of it is buy land for
Okay.
cheap, sell it for more, determine if there's a value add strategy and calculate what your annualized return on the property would be based on your varying exit strategies and execute.
Mhm. Okay, so if we go back towards the beginning, I'll have a few questions about different places in the process. How do you initially find these and target these lots? Do you do search in certain counties by, like, first of all, how do you select the counties? And then number
Mhm.
two, do you have a certain lot size, or what are your search criteria to make sure that you're even interested in looking at that piece of land?
Absolutely. I start macro and then go micro,
Mhm.
where look at the trends in the United States. Where are people moving? Where are the hot areas? And how do you find that? You just Google it. What are the hot real estate markets in the United States? And assume that there's going to be interest in those. And for people that are in the space, they know where there are. I mean, people know that Colorado along the 35 corridor, Denver to Colorado Springs works really well for like the simple infill lot flip. The Phoenix market, the Tucson market, all in Florida, the Carolinas, parts of Nevada. The Sun Belt is super hot right
Yeah.
now. So it's where are people moving? NAR, the National Association of Realtors, puts data out on where people are moving. Look at census data and Google where are builders
Yeah.
building. So you start there, and then you kind of move a little more micro, where get on a third party MLS site like Zillow or Redfin and look at transaction data. How many properties are selling versus how many properties are coming on the market, and try and find one that's give or take. And this is an arbitrary number, but like a 1-to-1 sale ratio over 90 days compared to list listing. So if in the last 90 days, 100 properties have sold and 100 properties have come on the market, you can anticipate like a refresh of
Yeah.
properties
fairly balanced market.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. And then from there, zoom in even further. If your strategy is just infill lots, meaning it's horizontally developed, it's the lot in your neighborhood that has all the public utilities, or if it's a more rural community, you know that it's well and septic, and the lot is standard. There's verifiable comps is the
Mhm.
main thing that I'm getting at there. Zoom in and figure out where where that transaction data is actually occurring. Of It doesn't make sense where a lot of people will talk about, oh, I pull the whole county of
That's
I
too
live in
much.
it's too much.
Yeah,
And there's areas in El Paso County, Colorado
yeah,
that it you wouldn't touch.
yeah.
Well, maybe not El Paso. Maybe that's a bad bad example, but there's plenty of counties where if you bought a piece of land, you're going to own it for a long time. And I've
Yeah.
made those mistakes.
Mhm.
I've, knock on wood, not lost money yet on a deal. That might happen pretty soon. I have a feeling it's going to happen on one we're dealing with right now. But um, if there's tons of transaction data, like you're going to make money on this deal because you
Mhm.
know that there's a desire, whether it's from a retail buyer or from a builder, to buy
Yeah.
land in that area, and it's just shown through these third party MLS sites.
Okay.
So macro to micro.
Okay. So then you've honed down on the market you're targeting. As you said, from macro to micro, you've selected, I don't know, 20 plots. Then how do you go about it?
Yeah, so I pull the data. I use a tool called PropStream, which I think
Mhm.
a lot of us in this space are familiar. For an initial campaign of infill lots, based on that transaction data, I determine what the lot size is. Of Okay, I can see that 90% of what's selling is a quarter to 1 acre lot. So I'm going to filter for a quarter to 1 acre lots, and I'm going to target the people that are most likely in my mind, and what the data suggests are going to be most likely to sell, which is typically 7 to 10 plus years of ownership, out of state, out of county, individual, and trust. So if you start with that kind of general criteria, and then I'll send them a direct mail campaign, and then I use a cold calling service to
Mhm.
also cold call and text those people. And I mean, I send pretty simple mailers of, here's one where it's, are you planning
Oh,
to build on your land? If not, we'll buy it so you can put your money to work elsewhere. So it
nice.
it's a little less scammy, I feel
Yeah.
like, than a lot of the mailing material that I used to send of like, we buy land for cash, we're a pawn shop, like give us your land, like, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because a
And
majority.
this looks also a little bit more organized and corporate and all that, and it reassures sellers.
Absolutely. I think ensuring safety and legitimacy of,
Mhm.
I mean, we have verbiage in our mailers of, okay, in X county, call Tracy at Fidelity National Title Company in the Woodland Park office in Colorado. And I've done, I don't know, 50 deals with Tracy. And
Yeah,
being able to say, we use a title company or an attorney in the attorney states for every transaction. We can provide
yeah,
proof of funds, because people are scared. And a majority
yeah,
of those people, if you hear that seller avatar or demographic that I'm targeting of 10 plus years out of state, out of county, they're probably, I'd say, in the age range of 50 to 90. And
yeah,
the not that 50s, but in the 70, 80, 90,
yeah,
they're terrified of scams.
yeah.
They're attempting to get scammed all the time. And if you can say, call my title agent, call this attorney, you can look them up online, you can look
Yeah,
us up online.
yeah,
We are a legitimate business, we insure everything. It
mhm,
reduces a lot of fear in their
yeah,
mind.
yeah. It creates instant, I was going to say credibility, and also it's also the best way for them to refer you to their neighbor or to refer you to somebody else afterwards. And I'm sure that's happened a lot. And you're right, like with the demographics that you're targeting, especially if they're out of state. Yeah, it might be a piece of land in Arizona, but they live in New Jersey, and it's like, who's this guy now who's starting to contact me for my piece of land? Like it's not worth anything anyways. What does he want? So, and
Mhm.
I'm sure you've heard that hit that hurdle at the beginning, and I guess it made you get to that point where a local team is really helpful.
Absolutely. And that's a very, very important point of, people ask, how do you value the land? Zillow tells you one thing, but you need local realtors, boots on the ground, to go look at it, because I can't tell you how many deals that, either people within the industry that I've worked with or myself, where and I tell this story. My good friend, my first realtor that I ever used in San Antonio, Texas. I saw a house pop up on the market that looked like a great fix and flip. And I mean, this was years ago before I knew anything besides Bigger Pockets episodes. And I was like, Tim, look at this house. It's like 110 grand. Like, I want to buy it. And he's like, dude, this is on the east side of Pine Street, which is run by this particular gang. And if you were on the west side of Pine Street, I would tell you to do that deal all day. And that right there was like the clicking moment of, you need that local knowledge and that expert to be able to say, look, I know this street looks good online, but no one buys there.
Yeah.
And just because you have a comp that's 0.01 miles away right across the street, it's not the same property.
That's a
And so,
great example. Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes a huge difference to have those local boots on the ground.
oh yeah. So having that
Yeah.
person there to value the land, so you can send them a text and be like,
Mhm.
hey, Tim, how much is this property worth? And he'll say it's worth 50 grand. So I can look at my numbers and say, it'll probably take about 3 months to sell. I'm
Mhm.
comfortable getting a X% return on investment. I'll offer $31,500 or something
Yeah.
like that, which is also why I know a lot of people in the land flipping space, they start off in this business doing blind offers for their direct mail campaign, meaning I want to buy your land at 123 Main Street for $31,500. But I use neutral letters and cold calling because it opens up the conversation where, say that offer that you sent for 31,500 because you attempted to do some formula that used a bunch of bad data. Um, Say that
Yeah.
land's worth $100,000,
Yeah. They're
and they
never
would
going to
have
call you.
no. But if you had offered them $48,000, they would have taken it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still a 50,000-ish profit deal
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you didn't allow because you had faulty data. And coming from healthcare, where the data is also bad, real estate data is really bad.
Yeah. No,
So
but you raise an excellent point of sometimes the mistake of like, hey, I'll offer you in this blank price that comes up from a formula with factors that aren't taken into account. The reality turns off a lot of people. Is like, how could you even value it? We've never had a conversation. Like, basically piss off. So I think
oh
it's
yeah,
wise to just like get that person on the phone, spend 15 minutes with them. I'll need a little bit more information, and then I can give you a price that reflects reality and what we can realistically pay for your land. Okay, so then you said, so that's how you identified it. You analyzed it. Now you're going to have to put it under contract. Do you so because you said in your exit strategies, like you put it under contract, sometimes you close, sometimes you wholesale. How do you decide?
yeah. So it it obviously depends on the seller and not necessarily their level of sophistication, but what their desire is. For some sellers, it's, I don't care how much I'm getting. I want the quick cash close, the pawn
Yeah.
shop model.
Yeah.
And for those ones, we probably purchase it at an extreme discount. We'll close in 2 weeks. We open up title, assuming that nothing comes back in the title search, and we do our due diligence and make sure that all the boxes are checked. Which our due diligence is essentially, are there comparable sales for the exact same property? Of, are the utility situation, is it the same? Of, if it's septic, do we need to get a perk test? If it's sewer, how much are sewer taps? How much are water taps? How much swell costs, electricity, proximity, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Assuming that DD comes back just fine and that title search comes back fine and clean and clear, we'll close, as quickly as we can. For other ones, which I've started doing more recently, where the language in the initial contract says that the property is marketable and assignable, we'll list the property on the MLS after we have title open and that title comes back clear, and we'll have sometimes 30 to 45 days to sell it on the market. So I'm doing a portfolio deal right now in uh, Arizona City, Arizona. 7 properties, got it under contract for I think 152,000. Total list price was like 210,000. So it's a slimmer deal than what I typically do, but it was a $500 earnest money deposit, and 6 of the 7 properties are already under contract to sell within the DD period. So even though the
Wow.
margin on the deal, if I was buying and selling, is not fantastic in the grand scheme of land flipping, that is, I mean, that's a great margin for most
Mhm.
investors
Mhm.
in a 30-day period. But um, having 150 grand of capital deployed for a potentially thin margin is just something that
Yeah.
myself and typically, I don't expose my investors to as well.
Mhm.
So they're pretty much all under contract to sell. So it depends. That's something that I don't do as much. Coming from healthcare administration, I was very, very anti-litigious, and I did not want to get sued. And so it's just making sure that your contract is strong, that you and the seller are on the same page of, I'm not trying to hide anything. Like
Yeah.
it says in my contract of, hey, our plan is to probably resell this to profit, maybe build on it if it makes sense, or
Mhm.
maybe do nothing. And you
Yeah.
can't hold us against that. And then working with a title company and a realtor that are all comfortable with the double close or the wholesale model as well. So I'll say I've done about 10 or 12 deals that way, but a majority are the buy and sell because typically you can get a higher margin that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Now, if we've kind of fast track a little bit to some of the other exit strategies that you mentioned a bit earlier, so you've done some land severance, some subdivisions. But
Mhm.
for those who are listening who are not sure, like that's when you buy a big piece of land and you cut it up in 8 pieces, and then you resell each piece, usually to a retail buyer, so someone who's going to actually buy the land and build his house on it, or build a property, or maybe a contractor who's going to build 5 homes next to each other. Is that something that you do more of now, and what do you see coming with this? Because to build the value, you need to bring utilities, you need to how do you justify this increase in price?
Absolutely. It's I I think the easiest way to think about it is supply and demand. Of you hear my business model and you hear the pawn shop model, and the only value that I am adding in that model is by taking a piece of inventory that has been off market for potentially decades and bringing it on market, which is like kind of a crappy value add. I just happen to be the
Well,
right
it's
person.
basic.
Oh, for sure it is, and
Mhm.
that's why pawn shops exist at every street corner. Of
Yeah.
you can, it's the right time to sell, and I happen to send the right piece of marketing material at the right time to the right person, and that's just so much up in the air. But whenever you're doing a lot split, and that can, for the most part, be divided into either a minor subdivision or a major subdivision, where it's the same thing, is instead of bringing one parcel on the market, you're bringing four parcels or 10 or 500, where through and through the wealthiest people I know are developers, where they take
Mhm.
these huge pieces of land
Yeah.
and they split them up into lots and they add the horizontal improvements and sometimes go vertical and sometimes not. And sometimes they, just do the paper lots, which is
Yeah.
what we initially did for that Arizona deal that I talked about. We just did the paper lots, but then uh,
Can
it
you
was super.
define the paper law just so everyone's clear?
Yeah, absolutely. It's taking land through the entitlement process, which basically means I'm taking a piece of land, and to make it very specific, it was a 5.03 acre parcel of land in Maricopa County, Arizona, and Surprise, Arizona, where we bought it. It's surrounded by 1 acre lots, so that's kind of what the market demands. Where there's not a lot of comps for that 500, or sorry, that 5 acre lot, but
Mhm.
there's a ton for these 1 to 1.5 acre. So we took that 5 acre lot, we bought it, paid 250,000 for it, and then we had a surveyor come out, which I paid $2,500 for, which blows my
Wow.
mind because in
Yeah.
Colorado I pay way more for a simple like corner and stakes survey. The surveyor comes out and draws the lot lines and draws what the access easements are and the utility easements are, all on paper. Nothing has been done. No roads have been cut in or anything like that.
Mhm.
Survey is completed. You submit it to the county, and the county records the new deeds of the four new properties, which four new properties have been created. So
Mhm.
I say that is a very simple county to do it in. Some
Mhm.
counties require a lot more complexity. Of El Paso County, Colorado Springs, for instance, if you're doing lot splits that are less than 35 acres per final lot, you have to make sure every lot has water and a water feasibility study done by a hydrologist and a water attorney, and you can't have dry land, and roads
Mhm.
have to be cut in to make sure that county vehicles can get in. And so I target markets, going back to market selection of, okay, like, and I'm an open book, obviously, of Dorchester County, South Carolina. It's
Mhm.
like west-ish of God bless, Charleston.
Mhm.
Um, Charleston's a huge like hub. It's a big tech hub right now. The market
Yeah.
is growing outrageously. And in my mind, and what the data suggests is people are moving and want to be close to Charleston, but want more rural communities.
Yeah.
Dorchester County, South Carolina, similar to Maricopa County, Arizona, you can take one lot and split it into 10 with the same ease that I talked about. Have a surveyor come out and,
Mhm.
assuming that they all have access, you can take a 10 acre lot and split it into 10 1 acre lots. And by doing that, say the 10 acre lot is worth 300,000, but each 1 acre lot's worth 60,000.
Yeah.
It's similar to homes where the price per square foot goes up as the house size goes down typically.
Yeah. No, that's a great it's a great mechanism. And so, okay, so you're doing this now in various parts of the country, and you mentioned now, like, if we elevate a little bit more, that you're looking to start a fund because you also fund. Oh no, before we go there, how do you fund those deals? Do you for the ones that you close, do you take private money, or is it investors coming in with you?
So it's evolved, and I think that's an important point to note. Of it started with my own money, and I got really lucky. I got really lucky on that first deal. Like, it sells in podcasts and headlines of made 115,000 on my first land flip. I got lucky. I can't emphasize that enough.
I don't just believe in luck. It's not
And
luck. You were there to take the chance, and good things happen, but it's not
one
just luck.
1,000%. But in terms of a margin deal of like the best multiplier of buy for 42, sell for 185, I've only had one deal similar to that in margin, which it was like buy for 1, sell for 10. But it's I started with my own money to prove it. Of you've got to have skin in the game. I
Yeah.
think the idea of being a real estate investor and having no money and doing low and no money down is absolutely a myth. You can get involved in the community and work for people that have money, but you
Mhm.
can't do it yourself without money. So proving the system with my own money and recycling it over and over, and did 10 or 20 deals before I attempted to raise money. And then I attempted to raise money with the people that I had the best rapport with, which is the friends, families, and fools that trusted me, the 3 Fs. And starting out, my family who believes in me, and I said, hey, I can give you a better rate on your money through an unsecured promissory note than you're getting in your savings account. I won't take that much money just to prove it to you, and we can do this for a few years. I'll give you 10% interest, and it's just OPEX or
Yeah.
operating capital for myself.
Yeah.
And then for people that didn't know me as well, the more friends and everything, I would give up anywhere from 20 to 60% of the net profit or the net revenue of each deal uh, to say, like, hey, like, I'm new at this, and I am new at this. I'm still new at this, and I've been doing
Mhm.
it for 3-ish years now. I'll give me another decade, and then I should inspire a bit more confidence. But I'm still new at this, and I think that by saying, hey, look, I'm gonna secure your money against the asset. If it doesn't sell within a particular amount of time, I will either pay you back your money that you lent with interest or give you the property. Which I've done some deals with debt structuring and equity structuring that I would never do at this point in time.
Yeah.
But I had to cut my teeth in some capacity. And in order for investors to trust you, say, hey, Mason, like, you personally secured a $350,000 promissory note. Like, what do you
You
like?
believe in this.
Like, I believe in this.
Yeah,
And
yeah, but that's the best way to go about it.
and I think that from there, I've evolved my business, and I can't give investors the same return because I don't need to, because I've raised millions of dollars and I deployed it successfully and gotten my investors money back on all the deals that have, or the ones that haven't yet closed. They will get their money back either when the property sells or whenever I pay them off. Um, Now I raise money more affordably, where it's interest based on the acquisition of the property, and it's still from friends and family. But having a podcast and having a platform and having a moderate presence on LinkedIn,
Yeah,
people see, oh shoot, Mason, you're making money. How can I make money?
yeah.
And so
I
that's kind of
want
what.
in. I've been following you for a year. I want in on your next deal.
Exactly. And so even though the rates aren't as high that I promise investors now, it's been an evolution of starting out giving up tons and tons of money to giving up less money through it, and then eventually going into where we're hopefully launching. I don't know when this episode comes out, but within the next month or so, our fund, which I am allowed to talk about on platforms and everything. We've structured it that way through our attorneys, where I'm able to go after the more. I wouldn't call them institutional, because most
Mhm.
institutional investors won't get out of bed for less than 25 to 30 million, but the quasi institutional investors, the high net worth individuals that can place a
A
few hundred
million dollars.
thousand or $1 million
Yeah,
with
$1 million
us,
plus.
and
Mhm.
get a decent return on that.
Yeah. Wow. And so tell us a little bit about the fund setup process, because I've looked into it. It's one of my objectives, and I'm starting to work with a friend on this. What did it look like?
Yeah, so we engaged an attorney group out of Denver that does this all day, and myself, and my business partner in the company where we've been partnering with people to provide capital for their deals. Dan Haberkost and I, we host the Big Picture Blueprint podcast together. Engaged this attorney group and said, "This is what we want. This is how we want it to be structured. We've heard a podcast about it and read a little bit about it. We know nothing at all, but this is what we want it to do.
Yeah.
Can you make that happen?"
Mhm.
And they said, "Yes, we can. We're going to do, you know, I don't remember the name of it. I don't want to misspeak, and don't take my advice. To contact your attorney. It's
Yeah,
like a
yeah. Contact an
reg.
attorney. This is for fun and entertainment.
Oh yeah, it's like a Reg D 506C evergreen
Yeah,
fund or something like that, where we have the
yeah.
ability to advertise it. We can only take accredited investors, and it's essentially we raise money through this fund. We give our investors the return that we will give out, based on their investment class and everything like that,
Mhm.
and that's it. I mean, paying good attorneys, like, it makes life so much easier.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think all in, Axel, I think it'll cost in between ten and $20,000 for all of the fund to be set up. Which,
Jesus, that's nothing.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
and
I have a friend who did it. It was like 120K in Canada.
that's the thing with the type of fund that we're doing. We can
Yeah.
only raise a max of ten million, I believe. And it's a new type of fund that's changed over the past few years, and it works well for a lot. But once again, it's a more challenging fundraising to do. Go out to the high net worth individuals and get a couple hundred grand here, a million here, than it would be, talking to a private equity manager and setting up a hedge fund and do a,
Yeah.
92 model.
But
And
Mason, you got to start somewhere. If your problem right now is that you can only raise till 10 million, oh, that is a good problem to have.
oh, absolutely. Well, and
Like,
and that's where the fear comes in too.
mhm.
Of, we're like, okay, well, we want to make it so where we can kind of raise and then deploy and then raise and deploy, because that's where that fear comes in of, what if we go raise the max amount, $9.99 million, and I have nowhere to deploy it?
Yeah,
And then you start having these conversations with people and saying,
yeah,
"Oh, I've got $1.9 million in projects that you could deploy it into right now. I'd give you
yeah,
half the deal. Like,
yeah, yeah.
please
Because
help
then it
us."
leads you to bad capital allocation decisions because you feel under the gun. And it's funny because we talked about that with somebody else too, of like having to keep that balance in terms of what you have to deploy and then your deal flow to make sure that you're really getting the best returns for your partners.
Absolutely. Which it,
Mhm.
it it goes back to having the clear buy box and not varying from it. You know, uh, Healthcare background, certified Lean Six Sigma black belt, which, means something to, like, maybe a few people that know manufacturing and supply chain
Yeah,
management. And
I'm one of those.
I know you are. I looked at your LinkedIn and I was like,
Yeah.
he'll resonate with some of the
Oh yeah.
supply chain stuff. And
Oh yeah.
it's the idea of eliminating waste and reducing variation as much as you can. And the only reason I would feel comfortable taking investors' money now is because I've cut my own teeth, because I feel, you know, background of managing $100 million P&L, and then going into this and managing my own P&L, and then realizing, okay, these are the deals that work really well.
Mhm.
These are the ones that work kind of well. And these are the ones that we're going to completely avoid and stay away from. I don't care how many gurus I know that make millions of dollars allegedly. Uh, we're going to stay away from those, and we're going to be very clear with our buy box to
Yeah.
protect our reputation and our investors' money.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. This is really interesting, Mason. I'm super happy we connected and we got you on the show today. If listeners want to hear more about you and connect, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, I have a website, masonrmcdonald.com, that you can reach out to me through that. But LinkedIn is where I'm most active. So I don't know my LinkedIn handle, but if you look Mason McDonald, Colorado up on LinkedIn,
Oh
you
yeah,
will
we'll find
find
you.
me and shoot me a message. Always happy to talk about real estate, investing opportunities, healthcare, golf, whiskey, watches, all my unfortunate hobbies I have. And yeah, chat about anything.
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much, Mason, for your participation on the show today. It's been very enlightening when it comes to land in the U.S. And that's what I love about this is that people ask me about the podcast. I'm like, I am forced every week to have conversations with real estate investor that I probably would have never met, and this is a perfect testament to that. So thank you for your contribution today, Mason. It's been really fun. So for
Axel,
all
it's been a
those,
pleasure. Thanks.
hey, thank you for all those who are listening. As usual, keep educating yourself, research your market, make some offers. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.